Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another video here. This is an inter-game between John and Yoda, playing as Neymar there, his Brazilian home hero. And it's a Naboo mirror, and the map's of course flat, as you can tell by the awful cliffs just everywhere. And looking at it, a ton of lure. 2 Phalumps, 4 Rontos there, and a 5th Ronto, just tactically hiding behind the carbon here. Greatest hide-and-seek player. And we got John opening food processor with this 6 lure start. Amazing. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see if it pays off for him. Probably not. And they're both doing it. Wow, that's impressive. I'm sure this is the inter bracket, but yeah. So brothers in well, solidarity there on the berries each. So that, of course, is much more inefficient than the lure, because you need about 8 workers to maintain worker production because of the slower gather rate, whereas you would only need about 5 to 6 on a lureable animal. So we've got John here. He's going to grab one of these Rontos and take it home. And probably going to end up with a lot more on food just to sort of keep this feeling fresh. So the carbon's going to be a bit delayed, plus they've already spent 100 carbon on a food processor that they probably could get all the way through 2-2 without really doing. Other than if they needed it for the building rule, because there's no nurseries to help out with that. But anyway, it's stable here. The Phalump grabbed up for Yoda as well. And he's beginning his endless chore of having to lure animals. Tell you, if you get 2 maps like this back to back, you're raging midway through the second one, killing all these Rontos and stuff, having to lure them. And that's what the players are going to have to do, just every couple of seconds, just one at a time maybe, lure them. Prefab shelter, don't want to get a house there. And has he ever found this Phalump? Yeah, yes, okay. I thought that guy might just hide here for the rest of the game. But even if you miss one, there's so many that it's not going to be too big of a deal. They're much more impactful when you don't really have the carbon for an alternative. But anyway, if you think about it, tons of food, and this worker's bugged out. Oof. Run for your life, laddie. Not the best spot for the Ronto there. It's not the worst thing. Oh! Just violence everywhere. Another worker going down there for John. Not so fortunate. Looking like both these guys are maybe just horribly nervous. Which I can absolutely respect here. It's stressful. GBG as a game is about 1% skill, 99% ego. And having to play one another on a 1v1 really might upset the balance of the egos. Another worker heading off here. Grab another Ronto. Not much going on other than Ronto grabbing. I didn't really notice this, but this is really horrible carbon. Can maybe wall it out a bit. Make it better. You could effectively have a really nice area here. Like carbon. I think these houses would be better served just in these spots already. And then this could be like the troop centres, because it's the more ideal location for troop centres. I'm assuming he maybe just going to narrow wall this instead once he's gotten all this hunt. On the other side of things, it's a little bit more simple for Yoda. It's got kind of nice clumps that you could just build between and grab up a lot of safe land. Sort of look like a hilltop sort of fortress when the walls are all done. Oh, the double luring. Does not have the talent for it, it seems. Another worker has fallen to a Ronto. Intense stuff here, out on the flats. And I think that's the second last one. You still have the Phalump to grab as well. Just so many to do. But Troop Centre and Power Core up already for Yoda here. And we'll just have a quick look at his economy. He's on his way to T2, so he's playing super standard. It's all looking good. At least when he lost that worker, it was sort of towards the end of T2, so he's not going to feel the effects for a while. It might not matter too much. And that'll be his last animal to lure, I think. He's all good. I think what we would say here is he's probably got too many workers on food right now. the berries, these could be carbon workers, and it would really help power up his rush here. Because he's got to put carbon towards some upgrades. He needs to build a lot of houses as well for this added extra production, so he's going to be making 3 things at a time. I think it's going to weaken his rush a little bit here and sort of nullify the lead that he's got on John at the moment. Wow, that's some griefing there by the workers. Try to kill their friend walking across the pathing. Oh. Poor distance, but at least the worker survived. As I said, I thought this would be a bit of a narrow one, but unfortunately there's kind of spots that it's very vulnerable from the back. Now 3 troopers here. There's 3 for John to defend. He does have his upgrades other than the range. And the DPS of these isn't huge, but he's maybe going to get a couple of workers. And that's smart to go for the troopers. 2 workers and then just go for the troopers. Try and trade even as well. Oh, didn't get shot off there. And there's 3 more. The lower the trooper count you can keep for your opponent, the more opportunities you'll have to just have small groups of troopers run around and pick workers off. Now John, quick to place farms where he's still got this full lump to eat, so that's 300 food he's missing out on. A lot of carbon to be thrown away just now when he needs to have some troopers to defend himself. A bit cocky to not build some towers I think, with how open this area is. I think you should definitely try and get this closed off. Gonna build a war center now. I think the war center's a bit early. I think you should just focus on walling up things and getting your eco sorted. I don't think the upgrades matter too much to the troopers, really. A lot of the times that you actually decide to fight is one of you on a hill and the other not. Or are they in your base and you've got them cornered? So I don't think the upgrades matter too much because there's normally big swings in numbers, or the buff for the hills plays a much bigger role. Be better to just get everything sorted for yourself. Now John's decided to move out onto the map when Yoda's very close to his, so Yoda gets to run around his base much quicker, and he's not going to have the forces to defend. He's got a second carbon here where he's putting a turret down, but he's going to get spawn camped in his troop centres, and now he's just having to run his workers around. Yoda is at the very least for John here, not too prepared here at the second carbon, losing quite a few workers. And John's forced to run his workers away as quickly as possible. He at least has some workers here bringing him carbon so he can make troops, which he's probably going to have to stash into the troop centre. He's only got 1 though, so he doesn't really have anything building up to defend himself here. And Yoda's doing a much better job getting the troopers out to trade with this force here. John is killing a lot of them, and killed quite a few workers himself. But this force is still running around uncontested in John's base, and it should maybe start killing some farms as well. And these are just incredibly bold, and he's going to be very fortunate if Yoda doesn't catch them. Very exposed farmers here. Now where did those workers, they must have done a zip around here into the command centre. Maybe put them on ore and start building more turrets. Looks like he's going to build a turret at the ore, so yeah. But his power core is, he can't repair it, and Yoda might actually get it here, because he can just take the trade as well, so power core is going to go down, and that's really going to hamper John's ability to defend himself, and Yoda's absolutely cleaned up the forces in his own base, so he's quite stable at home now, and he can still persist in terrorising John here in his base. It's quite surprising to see flats be this open, because of the amount of cliffs and bigger tree clumps that you can really like dip prefab shelters in between. Makeshift walls there. He's got that other turret up, but I think a lot of his eco is just not functioning a lot of the time. Ton of workers on Nova as well. He's maybe going to do some sort of spaceport shenanigans here. Look at John's eco. Not a lot of food or anything like that. He's actually missed 2 flumps. That's quite a big differential. Maybe why he ended up in the back foot here. As we said, he spent a lot of carbon on these farms early, when this is 600 food that was still up for grabs. Now, a second group of troopers arriving here for Yoda. I don't know where these guys are going. Random location here. can shoot at the farms here, and John's just going to have to turtle, I think, and just build turrets everywhere. And this should be a really good sure sign here for Yoda to just maybe just focus on going tech level 3. And then you can make some air, and you can put some strike mechs in some locations where they outrange these turrets. Because this means there's a lot of workers just not on the food and carbon that's mainly needed to get to T3. And there is a spaceport for John, and he can, you know, start trying to abuse things, but he's not going T3 anytime soon because he's getting motivator now, and that's 175 food at a pop. This turret getting focused down a lot of troopers at his door. And these two troopers have just been sort of scouting here for Yoda. They're maybe looking for like alternative paths into the back of the economy here, but he's just seeing that there's cliffs. But he might actually find these farms. And shutting down this location would be huge here for Yoda. A few troops have snuck out for John here. He did get a new power core, which can somewhat be repaired. Again, he's almost setting it up that he can never actually defend himself properly, and he's just looking for a cheap sort of win here in Yoda's base. And he's maybe hoping that he has enough turrets that he can just somehow pull out ahead in that, but I think he's putting a lot of pressure on himself to actually get a result out of that. It's almost like lottery tickets. And you see there's even enough troops here to actually defend Yoda at home as well, so the shenanigans are not going to work out and he can just chase this army down. Meanwhile, he's just killing off farms one at a time. And if he finds this spot for John, he's in big trouble here. And to be honest, he could walk into here and just kill lots of workers. This is only one turret, it's not a big enough deterrent, and I think John's maybe sensing that fact and dropping down a second turret now. Yoda did give up the chase, and there's still some forces here for John, putting a little bit of pressure on, but not too much because he can't really get into the back here too much. Like, there's a gap he could walk through. If you can maybe get onto the Nova there, that would be good for him. A few worker kills. And Yoda is on his way to T3, John not so much. You can see he's got 1,000 Nova. 300 carbon, you probably have to buy food in this instance. I'll just get to T3. There is 2 Nova piles, so it's not a huge deal. And to be honest, in this instance, you can't really be worrying about late game and Nova and all sorts of shit because, you know, times are tough here. You're making more and more turrets. But what's going to happen when fighters show up and you don't have a power core for your troop centers? He's snuck through the back of those cliffs like we talked about. Fortunately on patrol, so he's going to collide with the sentry post, and that's really going to give this away to Yoda and give him a lot of time to actually deal with this, and John not paying attention when he could have grabbed up maybe 3, 4, 5 worker kills here. And he's probably only going to have to resign himself to just 2 as this army collides with him. And that's Yoda hit T3 now as well. More turrets being made. These certainly might work a bit better in Age of Empires 3, but with fighters, and I can assume, yep, double airbase being dropped here for Yoda. That's going to completely counter any of this. And you can just get a few fighters out for control, and then just spam bombers if you wanted. John's still nowhere near T3. Not too sure what the play is here. He's up to 1,500 Nova. Could maybe just, you know, buy food and tech up. He does have 2 tech buildings. Sell ore, buy food. A lot you could do with a spaceport here. The 38 workers. The workers are actually even as well. I don't even think this would have been over if he went T3 a bit sooner, but it's too late now. The fighters arrive in and he's forced to call GG because he doesn't have any anti-air troopers. But he could certainly have built like a new thing here. This would have been a good spot for like a power core, some tech buildings, even a troop center, but I think he could have went to T3 a lot quicker just using the spaceport. And if he just gotten like an anti-air turret up or his own air bases, he would have been golden, I think. But anyway, that's not all the game, so go into the second game. And oh my god, it was bloody arena or something, is it? arena. It is at least nice that you get all this carbon. This comfy carbon. But yeah, you spawn with medium wall all the way around. So not too much rush aggression to worry about. There's a lot of nerfs though, so nursery going to be here. Which means Mounties could be a thing, and the Mounties will absolutely go through the gate like it's butter. So they have to bear that in mind, and it's going to be very difficult to scout this from your opponent because you can't get in the walls. Unless they really muck up and you catch their scout coming out the gate at the same time and you get yours out. I suppose what you could maybe do is build like a sentry post on the edge of the wall. Try and get a look in the base to see what's going on. But I think most of the time this would favour going for a very quick T3. But I do think there might be the odd opportunity to just go hard with some Mounties, like heavy Mounties, and go through the gate maybe. It'd be on the other player to maybe just spam some prefab shelters behind it and just shore up the gaps in the wall. If you've got enough Mounties, you could sort of hit like a bunch of different locations at the same time and make it really difficult for the player. And you've not too much to lose in that regard because you're making them spend carbon and stuff that they would have to spend on the air bases to just sort of counter the play. So Olympusat lured here to get the sort of the food going. There's a couple of berries as well and the odd EOP here. And find some of the nerfs. And you can always delete these walls in the back because they're just, well, they're not doing anything, they're not walling anything, they're just making your carbon line a little bit worse. There's a dewback as well. So it's not too bad for the food. And with the nerfs there, it's going to be a decent one. There may be a few farms needed before they can go T3. And Yoda might want to come and scout the back of here and find these two nerfs. That's two dewbacks. Nice. And the hollow's all in the centre, so it'd be much easier for the players to grab and scout out, I think. I don't really see any in the back. Two there, one there. Not a civ that gets any extra bonuses from the hollows though. But if this was maybe a Republic or a Naboo mirror, they'd be all over those, I think. Just gotta wait and see what happens here. See if there's any sort of diversions or deviations from the norm. Troop Centre from John, that's interesting. So, maybe going to go for Mounties. This is a good civ for it, being Confederacy. Having the extra Nova because you don't need to spend it on basic training. As I said, I do think it has to be like T2 Mounties. Oh, they're both going to do it. Interesting. So they're probably going to cancel each other out in this regard. It'll just be a much slower T3 from them both. Almost getting through there. Yoda did find those nerfs, that's good. Power core dropping, onto Nova. I'm not too sure what's going on with John here. I think it's because he's queued up like 4 Mounties rather than just teching. Like he could do this and tech, but he's just queued so many up. Like that's 50 food a pop, and then what you've got in the command center as well. I think I rate Yoda's build a lot better here with the heavy Mounties and stuff. Because if it's going to be Mountie versus Mountie, this is really going to pay off having upgrades. I would say that Yoda's got a lot more practice with this because he likes to do this kind of build in team games an awful lot. And this is a really good map for it. Now there is a little bit more for John, but that doesn't really matter too much when there's walls and stuff and he's not on top of his opponent. He should be on his way to T2. Yeah, it's very late though. And it's like he has bundled them up, you know, to go for the element of surprise, but his opponent is T3, and this is still too late to be attacking. Let's have a look here. He's got 4 heavy mounties. Going straight onto this medium wall, and there's not really been a response from the workers, because you could definitely just like prefab, stop him getting in. But he almost wants him to come in, right? Because he's got the mounties himself, but his are heavy mounties. And that's not going to be a great trade for John. He doesn't want to throw these away, he needs to leave. One goes down very quickly. He's actually taking the trade on here. And the heavy mounties are going to make a huge difference, I think. They've got like 10 more HP. Do like extra damage as well, 2 more damage. And he's just absolutely slaughtered them. And this could really snowball. Yoda keeps making these. See what he's going to make at home. He's going to switch to actually troopers, or he's got his own heavy. He's going to let him through the gate. What you can do is stand on top of the middle of the gate and kill it really quickly, because you get like a more surface area for units. He's just going to run in here. Maybe try and get him while he's unprepared. He's only got 2 trooper recruits out, so it'll be enough to protect the power core. He's trying to wall it, but, well, there's no room to actually repair it now. And it goes right down. So he's killed off the power core. He has to run away here. He's making a lot more mountains at home. He's trapped in the base though. Let's just go for the gate. I mean, you can run round and stuff, but there's no way out. I think I would have just went for the gate damage. So I think you're maybe just going to go for T3. There's not a lot of forces out, because he's had to make troopers as well, they're not too good against the old gate here. He does have units at home to defend, but he's actually run past the army of John here. And once again he can get through the gate, but I think it's better to kill it now. It's down and the base is completely open. And he should maybe just run in here and try and get the power core again, maybe. Nice spread of farms for both players. They've got plenty of food, I think, to fund these shenanigans. A few troopers at home for Yoda. He's maybe feeling a little bit nervous in case he gets counterattacked himself. As a spaceport, he just hasn't quite got a second tech building as of yet. And John just catching up now, getting his spaceport. This feels like a spaceport war center kind of game. Crazy one. I would rate getting the hollows in this though, just because they're so easy to find. He's actually not found a single one. Amazing. There's so little to scout as well. He's got much better spread. I like colliding here, these weird little trooper mounty wars. It's worked out that all the troopers for John are dead, but all the mounties for Yoda are dead. And both just gonna walk back home. Not want to keep that going anymore. Triple airbase. brain just switched off for a little bit there. Triple airbase here from Yoda. Hitting T3 first. And John, he's hit T3 as well. One airbase here and an anti-air turret, so much more on the defensive here, and a sort of double turret location here as well. It is Nova and Azor, just to make sure that they're safe. He's got troopers scouting around, so he maybe found those holocrons now. Not quite a amount of fighters here that Yoda feels comfortable with. Waiting for a bit more before he goes out and reveals them. And there are areas of the base here for John that are very vulnerable to fighters. And these are confed fighters, so for some reason they take 5% longer to build and are 5% more expensive. Whoop-de-doo. I don't know why you would bother including that in. But yeah, that's what the devs decided to do. He's flying straight into the anti-air turret here, so unfortunately he loses one. Does get a worker for it, but then he loses another one. And he loses another one. He's just like microing so incorrectly here that the turret's getting one every time. Not quite got the right rhythm for that turret. So his numbers are now engageable here for John, and he just flies straight into his fighters, and yeah, it's a terrible trade for Yoda. John only losing one fighter there, and killing about 6 of Yoda's. They do have an even amount because Yoda's got 3 air bases. He can manufacture them much quicker. But at home, he does not have a second command center yet. He's making a mech destroyer as well. I feel like this carbon should really just be into a new CC. It might kind of fall behind doing this. So we've got John running around the edge of the map. Yoda's going to be very vulnerable to a counter-attack from air because he feels almost compelled to defend with his own air, but he's also going to feel that he wants to be out in the map, riding John here. And John at least has turrets to fall back on at home, whereas Yoda doesn't really have that. He's just getting a second CC now, so these workers actually have nowhere to run to if they get raided. And if the air's out in the map, then there's nothing to actually save them. Not having a tower here is going to feel bad. He does make one just in time, I think. That's a bit better. But there are little areas where you could maybe lose some workers. John doing the same sort of thing here, just flying straight into this turret. Wow. Turret MVP. And at the same time, Yoda's getting on top of John's eco here, and there's so many dead workers right now. There's a huge amount of fighters, so the DPS there is really high. John is getting a few here as well, but it's going to be quite quickly enough for Yoda to engage at home here and clean this army up, whereas for John to engage this is going to take a while. He's kind of just sectioned this part of the economy off, and this worker just no fear in him, straight into his death. There's a few here going to take a trade. It looks like he's on stand ground and he needs to pay attention or he's going to lose them all. Does take the trade here, cleans these up. But this turret just... a worker snuck out and just finished this turret off. And Yoda's forced to leave here. Yeah, he must have cleaned those fighters up at home during that as well. I think it's probably still kind of even with workers, maybe. Yoda actually just a bit ahead. He did kill a lot there down at the southwest position. And as I said, it's low CCs at the moment. A third and a fourth one being dropped for John now. That's a bit better. Third up for Yoda now as well. So it's going to ramp up a bit now, the worker production. John does. Yoda does presently have a bit like a 5 worker lead. But with that extra CC, maybe John can catch up there. I'm not sure how long you want to keep making these fighters as confed. You could maybe go for like fast fighters in T4 just for the economic damage, but it's not the finest tech line. And the second Novas and stuff look like they're sort of outside of the base, and you're going to have to come into the centre of the map. Into this sort of like big crater in a big rainforest or whatever it is. And start grabbing up land. You can see our first contestant for the Holocron show. We've got John here grabbing up one of them. So 5 to grab. It'd be a nice differential. And good to have that extra Nova for these civs as well, being sort of like an artillery focused civ. So you've got that Nova to contribute towards building a ton of them, massing them up. And a few troopers from Yoda here running in, but this position's quite well defended with the double turrets. But you can maybe hunt down that Jedi that's going for the holocrons. Doesn't want them grabbing those up. Needs to micro this one, send him out there, grab another. Let's see if we can make it out. You can send his troops to go and kill the troopers, and maybe this Sith apprentice can make it home. A good little command center sneaking out here into the center, grab up some land. I think that both players should really be getting like heavy weapons factories about now, and sort of starting to get that sort of ground army going. Particularly in John's case, because he could just get the A-mobiles and start, you know, pushing up here, because Yoda's very resigned to just making fighters to defend himself and have his map presence, and the A-mobiles will completely shut that down. What are you doing, laddie? Put it in. Into the temple. Let's go. Holocron deposited. And yeah, not much going on now. Focusing on their ecos, I think they've got a lot of farms to build, a lot of upgrades to get. But do want to see some sort of forward infrastructure for both of them. I think both these players, about this period in the game, T3, boom, they kind of maybe over boom a little, but they don't have like a good balance of getting like military infrastructure started. The more of the school of thought of just boom for ages and then get it up once you've got your upgrades and stuff. You'll lose a bit of opportunity to ramp up pressure. So there's going to be a lot of holocrons here for John. He's going to have all 5 actually. And that's a huge difference. Even though you don't get too much as the civs that are not like Naboo, Republic, etc. That's still a lot. It's a big differential of Nova. Minimal investment here, I think. But can we see some buildings? There we go. Kinda think he should be like more upwards in the map though. I suppose it's not too bad of a distance. He's going to need something to keep them safe from mounties, because there's a lot of mounties here for Yoda and a lot of fighters, and he's almost going for some sort of timing here. He's got the advanced mounties here, with a few upgrades. And this could spell disaster here for John, because he doesn't have too much for it. His Padawans are not going to help, because they suck against mounties. He doesn't have too many fighters, and necessarily he wouldn't have anything to defend his artillery at the moment, because there's no trooper line, and there's no strike mags. And these artillery are coming out. Bad day for them to show up. Mounties at the door. And the power core are going to go down here, I think, as well. He is on his way to T4. I think he definitely needs to throw out some fighters here. Maybe if you can get like fast fighter attack or something like that. Oh, the Geo Warrior really going to pay off dividends here. He'll shred these guys really quickly. Tons of damage for troopers. And that attack's going to peter out a little bit. Yoda's still rallying like it's... You know, he's got him by the throat here, but with the Geonosian Warrior and that, he doesn't really. He's stopping him getting anywhere on the map, but I think he needs to get a forward up or something. You can see the workers coming across. Maybe he can build like a fortress here and just solidify this position. But he will need to get to T4 as well, I think. Because he doesn't have the res, because he's spent a lot, and it looks like he's doing some sort of spaceport shenanigans here. Maybe just selling some res for Nova. Because I worry, if he builds a fortress here, right, his opponent's already T4, and he can get cannons out, and the cannons will be in a very safe location as well, so they can just sit and pepper this fortress, and I think this is maybe a bit too ambitious of a fort. Even more so when he doesn't have any units that look up, because it kind of reveals it happening here. I think he should have built it back a little bit. Geo's clearing up the workers there, so I think this is really petered out here, and it's almost like he's crashing against the brick wall here. And he's just falling behind massively. And with the holocrons that are going to start ticking away now as well, there's going to be a lot of Nova generated. And a cannon, as we talked about, a cannon can just sit in a very safe location here and just shoot this fortress. And troop centers now, so he's got repeater troopers, and it looks like he's got a lot of the damage upgrades for them as well, so he's looking golden in that regard. So if he can just get a few of those and a few artillery going, he's got that good unit composition. And it's going to prove very difficult for Yoda, who's built a lot of his economy out here as well, but he just doesn't have the units or the infrastructure to defend it. So I think he should have really been more conservative with that fortress, because at least would have protected this and stalled for a long time. And he'd have a lot more opportunity to snipe cannons if they're out here, or here, rather than all the way down here. And he calls GG, because he senses that there's not really any way for him to come back from that. And we will head into Game 3, the decider here. So it's 1-1 between these players, between John and Yoda. And they're going to go to Old Trusty Desert, where there's a ton of nerfs and this Gungan mirror. And a couple of Rontos as well. So it's going to be a really quick T1. Or T2 rather. And it could be some early Mounties or just some early trooper aggression. Let's have a look at his 8. So his other 8 are just sitting here together, which is kind of convenient if he does actually scout it. It's the same for John as well, but his are right in the back there, so they might take a while to actually find. It's probably going to be the last place he looks. Second nursery going down. Lure the Ronto as well, so it's going to be a really quick paced T2 here. Going to be a ton of food just injected into the economy very quickly. And no workers going down in this one so far. Quick carb for John here, but it's actually in place of the second nursery. So he's going to fall down in the food scores here for a little bit, I think. He has found the nurse now. Is he going to get housed? He is, yeah. I thought that was a bit too quick for the nursery. I think he's maybe fallen behind by a worker there. Yeah. So worker lead for Yoda here. The second Ronto being lured. Carbon set up. It's all looking quite peachy for himself here. Should be feeling good, confident, ready to rush and destroy John here. Unless John can put up a really good defense. He tries to psych his opponent out by asking him why he's changed his name, distracting him during this epic, important tourney game. I love soccer. It's football, mate. Football. Not soccer. Football. Asking about the name Neymar, the Brazilian stunner. He plays for PSG, I believe. Unless he moved. I've stopped following football for a bit. Got a bit bored of it during COVID. Well, when it switched off during COVID and I started using COVID as an excuse to not play games half the time. Particularly those clubs that had lots of games to play. So troop centre very early here for both players. It's probably going to be their tech building in this instance, because the food's going to get to 500 very quickly. And as I say that, Neymar, well, Yoda, already teching up. So he gets his power core now, and you could fling out, like, this is kind of like a fling out two Mounties sort of aggression point of view. You use it to sort of scout as well, put a little bit of pressure, and then you follow up the troopers here. But he's just going to go for the troops. I think the Mounties would be very, very good in this instance. It's like the best, this is like the best time for them. Just because you can get that out onto the map quickly and you can keep your opponent down a little bit. And then you follow up with your troops. Because he still needs to get his second troop centre and he'll need to get the tech and stuff as well. And I think by the time he gets like 3 trooper recruits out, his opponent will have that as well, so. He's thinking about walling things out here, get a food processor, because he'll need some farms at some point. I think he's getting quite close to actually needing a little bit of food. Whereas John, on the other hand, is quicker to build the farms, but these EOPs might, you know, serve for now. It's unfortunate they kind of sit on this other side of a cliff. He needs to maybe gun them down when they come around. Bide your time. Building a turret here, kind of playing a bit timid. His opponent's still T1. A little bit of a miss this. That's a really nice carbon. Like, look at the wall you can do. It's so safe. You could farm up. I would farm up here. Yeah. Food processor here. That's Nova. Comfy. Comfy base. There's a lot more open here on your side, but he's doing a very good job getting these prefabs. You can get a couple up here as well, and then this side's just sort of walled. And you could have a lot more land than John, technically. I think it's just John's feels a bit more secure, quicker. He's got both his Novas will be quite safe as well. Why's he got like 3 Novas? What is this? The troops heading out here with their pet crate dragon. We're going to create some chaos here on John's side of the map. You can stand behind here and get these workers a bit. There's no turrets being built as of yet. John is T2. He's opened up this little location now, so the wall is actually going to fail here now. He's finished off that tree just in time for Yoda to come in here, and there doesn't seem to be any troops. I don't know if he's hiding them in the troop centers or what. He's hiding them in the command center. So Yoda doing the right thing there and running away instantly, because these guys would have just cleaned this up too quickly. Gets to the top of the hill, but it's actually kind of even because they're standing at the same bit. And John's definitely got the numbers to move around and abuse the hill a little bit more. But I think at this point he's actually trying to abuse the hill too much and taking extra casualties that he needn't take. So yeah, I think he could have won that a lot quicker while they were shooting at the crate dragon, but instead he was trying to be too cute moving up the hill, and it doesn't really matter too much in those numbers. A lot of troopers here at home, a war center dropping for Yoda, but not really looking for any more aggression. And I think he should just keep the pressure on. He's got way more than John does at home. At the very least, he could try and police him a bit. But to be fair, there's not a lot that's harassable because of the way that this base is spawned. If you look at where he's built all the farms and stuff, they're all very comfortably protected here. And he's even sort of wrapping around the command center. You could skip a second turret and just make a gate here, which I think would be a good call. He's already spent a bit of ore here on a wall bit, so maybe he's just going to build a gate here, and that'll work just as well for him. This turret will maybe stop any sort of turrets being placed behind his carbon, because this is his only carbon, and troopers standing there. And John's saying he missed a Ronto. Oh dear. I didn't quite catch that. That's a bad time. Maybe that's why he's been behind a little bit. He's going to lose the worker as well. You have to hold it with a trooper, is he? Oh, shoot the Ronto. Oh. Bad times. That's what you get for missing it. This actually would have been a really good offensive turret from Yoda if he was on the ball. Because if you get a turret up there, where does he go? It would actually cover the entire fucking thing as well. And the only defense would be to build a turret at the same time, but he was like T1 for ages. I think this is the nearest second carbon. Or this. It'd be so open. This guy that finished off this wall hunted down by this one scouting trooper, maybe looking for doors, secret doors. Oh, it looks like he maybe wants to do the turret. I just don't think he can now that this turret's already in it. Oh wait, this is John's. Ugh, don't worry about it then. Oh, I forgot my colours there. What is this worker up to? Sentry posts. Units from Yoda here. They're going to kill off the sentry posts quite quickly. Troopers do quite well against those. Probably since the campaign makes you kill them every 5 seconds with troopers. They've got to have that good damage against sentry posts. Unfortunate prefab shelter here rather than the gate. Means he's going to have to do a lot of garrison tricks to get his troopers out and stuff. Yoda running right into this army that's sitting on top of the hill, and there's going to be a good trade here for John, because the numbers were much higher for Yoda. You can see the hill isn't a guaranteed win, but it's a really good trade if you take the numbers into account. I think he's killed an extra 3 or 4 troopers. Then he's lost. I'm a little bit worried about him standing here, but the turret guarantees this. It's all good. I think Yoda needs to make a lot more farms at home. See John already at 800 food here. Yoda's actually on his way to T3. Oh, I forgot about all the nerfs actually. Forget about the farm comment, there's tons of nerfs, isn't there? A load of food. A double mech factory. Strike mech's devastating here. Even with the turret. If we can get a decent amount of upgrades for them, yeah, you can just spam them in here. And also get into this position, hit half the farms. This eco is actually really harassable. It'd be difficult for you to deal with it with grenadiers. If they're standing here, I think you could reach them here with the grens. They definitely need like MDs, I think. So I think John's on his way to T3 though, just a little bit later. And some really good upgrades been put through the war center here with that surplus food by Yoda. So he could get a good spike of damage here while John is still T2. Is he going to build more sentries? He's obsessed with the sentry posts. RVA fanboy. Sentry posts don't kill strike max. So this area is just, he's put them on stand ground away from the turret. And here as well, as we talked about, these are like the most harassable spots. And some AA troopers been built here, as I've said. You want to maybe get some fighters in here as well. And 1v1, I think you should always build an airbase, just because you're going to force your opponent to have to guess and mix and match with their trooper tech, especially when they're T2, on how to counter the units. And bringing the troopers here just to sort of reinforce this spot, and I think he's just going to keep rallying strike mechs as he can. Building a heavy weapons factory, which is interesting. He's maybe going to rally an AA mobile. I think that John's going to go for an air base to defend this, like maybe a bomber to clean this position up. As well as a mech destroyer to sort of try and outrange these strike mechs. But there's a lot of the eco that's not actually functioning properly, and what Yoda should be doing at home though is just getting a command center or two and making sure that he's really getting ahead economically off of this. Because he doesn't even necessarily need to be killing these workers. He's just doing a lot of harass damage. The economy is not functioning well, the base is very tight and compact, and there's the bomber we talked about, so hopefully I'm going to see an A mobile queued up here. Rallying across, that's great. So that'll really make sure that you can actually stay here in this position. And if you kind of like get through the wall with all these strike mechs and the upgrades that he's building for them, you could absolutely just devastate the mech destroyers and just completely win the game outright. There's no place to really build a command center either for John, other than about here maybe. So being contained in this base is really going to suck for him. Double AA mobile out here. He must have kept one in the heavy weapons factory. So I think there could be one here already if he was a little bit crisper. He's not much carbon at the moment. What's going on with the eco? He's struggling a bit. He's got some sort of inefficient carbon, boys. A couple of farms idle. I think there's maybe a bit too many workers on the Nova. He's maybe been using the spaceport here a little bit. Buy some carb. He's rallying a pummel across. Yeah, I think if he went for the airbase earlier as well, made a couple of fighters, he could just get a transport and get these pummels across now. But John really up against the ropes here. Only 2 mech destroyers. And I think they'll struggle against this many strike mechs. He does have the armor at least. I think, yeah, that's just the way to say Yoda should just start making MDs now. And with his double mech factory, he's going to have more very quickly than John. Yeah, he doesn't need to take this trade right now though. I don't want to lose these guys. Gungan A mobile's so weird. Just looks like a big crayon. Crayon on a pram or something. In fact, you don't see the wheels move, it's just gliding. And mech factory instead of a CC here. Definitely needs the production to hang on in this game. The bomber's completely useless now with the A-mobiles, and the pummel's going to get here and start headbutting. It's only going to take about 8 headbutts per prefab shelter here. Only 6 for the nursery. And that's another thing, this is a nursery that's going to be full of nurse. It's very exposed out here in the wall. He's moved back in here. He's got some Grens maybe to do some damage to these, but these workers are even more vulnerable now as they mined out more and more of these trees and gotten closer to the edge. Second pummel here, a few more MDs coming across, and it's really, really ramping up here for Yoda. John is getting sort of picked apart here. Incredibly difficult hold for him. The bomber's just going to get shot down. The pummels are getting through. And once this army can just walk in, it can stand and deny so much. And just spawn camp the MDs. And There's a gap now. He's going at fluffy rabbit speeds with the pummel though. Maybe take them out of the control group and just head in and one-tap these units. Look at the speed. Yoda has a need for speed. And he's in. Pummel. That's what? 2 headbutts. Bam. Power core down. Fortunately got one in the back here. But this mech fracture is going to help the shield. But there's so many MDs now. Because he's losing them like one at a time. You know, John. And he's going to have to call GG. And that'll be the end of it. So Yoda takes that 2-1. It's a very exciting series, a lot of antics there, and I'm particularly happy with the way that this game turned out. This is a very interesting sort of showcase here. Like super defensive bases. Looks like there could be a bit of improvement at home here. Yoda, a lot of idle workers, and this carbon, goddamn. Even Cal has carbons this bad sometimes, but yeah, it's really nice to see someone like playing really defensive and then getting punished properly for it. So it's a really nice showcase and a bit of a good contrast from a lot of the rookie games that we've been covering in the past few videos. Well, with all that said, if you liked the video, please give a like to it. Subscribe to the channel if you want, if you're interested in more GBG content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.